Good evening. Good evening. It is now 6:01. I'd like to go ahead and begin the meeting. At this particular point in time, I'm going to ask everybody to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Commissioner Watt? Present. Commissioner Bigelow?
Present.
Vice Mayor Commissioner Wilson? Present. Mayor Commissioner Vaughn?
Here.
And
Do we,
Commissioner King?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
thank you. At this particular point in time, with roll call, we're going to start with presentations. Do we have anybody from the sheriff's office for the report of the sheriffs?
Mayor, we do not. I know that the report was part of the agenda, and I also understand that the fire department had a meeting last night, and a couple of you were in attendance.
Yes.
If you would like to actually report on that, I'd be happy to turn it over to you.
I think what's the consensus of the commission?
That would be fine.
Okay, everybody's fine with pass it, moving on? All right. The report is in the agenda, it's in the packet if anybody wants to do it for the sense of kind of being expedited. We will move forward. At this particular point in time, we're going to open the floor for neighbor comments. Do we have any neighbors that would like to make a comment?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Sistrick. I live at 448 Harbor Drive South here in Indian Rocks Beach. And we'll be talking about the Hurricane Task Force a little bit later on this evening, but I do want to mention a pet project of mine that's partially part of the task force. But now that we are into hurricane season, I just want to further the education on lithium-ion batteries and the risk that they pose, especially for fires. We've got some good information back here from Pinellas County. Lithium-ion batteries should never go into a trash truck or a recycling truck. And even when they're not damaged by saltwater after a flood, a lithium-ion battery can cause a trash truck to catch on fire if it is crushed. And those are typically the larger lithium-ion batteries and things like scooters and lawn equipment like leaf blowers and those types of batteries have enough power in them that when they're crushed they can start a fire. And I don't want to lose a trash truck or any of our sanitation employees. So anything we can do to further that education both before and after floods occur is really helpful. And our fire district is working on that. We can look for a article or two in the Beacon Leader B papers by our fire marshal on the dangers of lithium ions that are in contact with salt water. And as an owner of a hybrid, I know that I have one underneath my rear seat in my Toyota. So it's not just exploding Teslas that you have to be concerned about. If you drive a hybrid, you should know where that battery is. If you drive a golf cart, you should know if that's a lithium ion and have a plan for it to get it out of harm's way and out of your garage in the event of a flooding hurricane. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Hello, Bob Copeland, 447 20th Avenue, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. I got a little seasonal stuff. If I sound a little stuffy, can't understand me, please ask me to repeat. I want to let the city know that I am the chairman of the Florida West Coast Orchid Society Community Orchid Project Outreach. This is a nonprofit West Coast of Florida, not Pinellas, not Tampa, not Hillsborough, not Bradenton, the whole West Coast, backed by individuals and wholesale growers. The project involves community beautification with orchids. In Pinellas County, I currently manage the Largo Library, the Dunedin Library, T.G. Rodriguez Golf Course, Seminole Lake County Country Club, Xavier School, Lakewood United Church. We had them at Largo Park, the Squirrels Ate. We had them at our location where we have our monthly meetings, the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd, but the volunteers failed to maintain them, so they died. We are looking to ask Indian Rocks Beach if they would like to become the poster child for community orchid beautification project. It costs nothing. The Orchid Society has a budget for which they will put up, spend X amount of dollars to place a limited amount of orchids to get started. There's no maintenance required. It's maintained by volunteers. They're beautiful. My concept, and each orchid, if you're not into them, they grow in a different environment, light, water, whatnot. My concept is to start by putting them in the walkway walking into the city hall doors, to put them at the Beach Arts Center. Perhaps we can put them at the library. I don't think the auditorium has enough sunshade. I am intending to ask A2K and RB Homes if there's any volunteers who would be responsible for taking care of the orchids. No cost to the city, no charge. And you would be shocked at the price that the wholesalers will sell additional orchids so that you can maintain them, the gazebo, put them up in the trees, just grow them nature and wild. You just have to get them established. I need two things: authority from the city and a contact. So after this meeting, if I can help, please let me know.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
Sounds amazing. All right, I'll be in contact.
Under contact.
Okay, we'll be in
Talk
touch.
to you soon.
And we'll get the other nonprofits to help you as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Beth McMillan, 481 Harbor Drive South. Some of us experienced something amazing on our beach Saturday night. Our friends Gary and Bliss Higgins had been watching a loggerhead nest for nearly 2 months. Around 9 p.m., Bliss discovered it was hatching and texted a small group of us who had been waiting to see it. More than 100 hatchlings emerged, but instead of heading toward the Gulf, they crawled towards the artificial light coming from the condos behind the nest. It quickly became chaotic and an emergency. Hatchlings scattered through the sea oats towards the buildings. The sheriff's office and the turtle patrol were called, while those of us there worked in the dark trying to find and redirect the turtles. Even after reaching the water, we watched some of them turn back towards the artificial light. Earlier that day, a next-door property manager had been asked by Gary to alert his incoming guests and keep the beachfront dark. During the hatching, one condo visitor was asked to turn off his lights because they were disorienting their hatchlings. He flat out refused. We directed as many as we could, but sadly the next morning one was found dead in the road. Just days earlier, 55 loggerhead hatchlings were found dead on Gulf Drive and Anna Maria Island after artificial light drew them away from the Gulf and into the road. Had Bliss not discovered our hatch when she did, we could have easily awakened Sunday morning to the same sad thing here in the IRB. Instead of being concerned about the baby turtles, this property manager later complained that his guests had been put on blast. But this guest was informed. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, and in this case, ignorance wasn't even the issue. For years, we've talked about the light pollution on the beach, and the city has worked hard to educate our residents and visitors, making information readily available through emails, mailings, and our website, while asking for voluntary compliance. Thank you, Michelle. But Saturday night showed us that education and voluntary compliance aren't always enough. It's time we turn our efforts towards enforcement and accountability. Other Gulf Coast cities already have. Marco Island requires lighting inspections every 2 weeks during turtle season. Venice conducts nighttime inspections from the beach, and each day of a continuing violation can be a separate offense. The goal is compliance, but when voluntary compliance fails, that's when there needs to be consequences. And for those who need help coming into compliance, grants are available to help transition to turtle-friendly lighting. I hope we can explore that. Sea turtles are federally protected. We have an obligation to make sure our local protection actually works. And that responsibility belongs to all of us, residents, visitors, short-term rental owners, property managers, condo associations, businesses in the city. We should be asking ourselves, what can I do to minimize my impact on the marine life and wildlife that share our city, not only on our beaches, but in our bays. Tonight, you're considering a proposed budget that provides for another code enforcement officer. With that additional resource, I think it's high time we make enforcement of our turtle lighting ordinance a priority, with proactive enforcement and meaningful consequences when people refuse to comply. Because when our convenience conflicts with protecting wildlife, the wildlife should win. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Anyone else would like to speak from?
Good evening, John Pansfield, 448 Harbor Drive. I just want to say that I've been coming to meetings for almost 30 years, and in that time, I've never seen the level of participation of commissioners in things, not only in Indian Rocks Beach, but outside in the state and in the district. And I'm sure, hopefully Jan will be talking more about the Florida League of Cities, which Indian Rocks Beach finally is a portion of again, or partner of again, due to her. And that all the available commissioners went down to their conference in Miami, in the area.
Holiday.
Exotic. And the other thing is, last night, a number of us were at the fire district meeting. And again, a majority of the commissioners were there. I have never seen this level of participation of commissioners in things that are of importance for the residents in our county. So I thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you, John.
Matthew Barraclough, 211 Pleasant Avenue. I think there's this initiative for promotion of residents, full-time residents in the city. I think one thing we're missing on that is the plan on how we're going to attract people. We've done a good job of establishing who we don't want. And I think there's a real opportunity here to bring people who are visiting into the full-time resident status. And as some of you came here as one-time visitors. I came here the first time in 2021. And my parents moved down here, and I moved down here in 2022. Tourism is a natural leader for providing full-time residents. Just this past 2 weeks ago, I had a wonderful family out of New Jersey, came down here, mixed generations, grandparents, parents, and 2 sets of children with their grandchildren. And they had a fantastic time. They loved Indian Rocks Beach. They loved the experience I provided. I actually made an offer on my house, unsolicited. Now, I don't take that because I think I want to stay here. But people like me and others who are inviting people to come down to Indian Rocks Beach present a real opportunity to grow the full-time residents. And I'm hopeful that this commission will eventually decide to develop some sort of plan to attract people. And if there needs to be marketing material developed that's shared out to people who visit, I'm happy to share that. I'm happy to pass that along. I know many others will. I also want to reiterate what Kelly said about lithium-ion batteries. Last week, this is in Largo, or Seminole, family had a e-bike. Battery wasn't in e-bike. In the room, got too hot, burned down the entire house. Lost everything. Some people in the community, short-term rental owners, have provided housing, but they're going to need a lot more than that. So to reiterate Kelly's point, lithium-ion batteries, because they're more prolific now than they were 2 years ago. With e-bikes, with golf carts, with vehicles. We need to be aware of that. So I'm hopeful that the commission considers my first point. I'm happy to participate in that. I know many other rental owners and short-term rental operators would gladly participate because we provide, and I see thousands of families a year, and we can convert 1% of those. You fill up all the inventory that's being sold right now, very quickly. So I would like to work with you all. I don't want this combative state to exist, but I want to see more outreach.
Thank you, Matthew. Would anybody else like to speak? Any residents? Okay, at this particular point in time, I'm going to close neighbors' comments, and we're going to go to the reports. And I think Ryan's going to answer some of the questions that came up in neighbor comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Commission, for my report, I want to acknowledge Ms. McMullen's neighbor comment regarding sea turtle lighting, the role that we play in environmental protection of our sea turtles, and our partnership with Clearwater Marine Aquarium. So, Clearwater Marine Aquarium, they do lighting surveys monthly. And so in July, they went out and they did a monthly survey of the beach and identified properties that were not in compliance with our sea turtle lighting ordinance, which we have in place. We worked with them on then sending out the notices to those residents, highlighting their property, highlighting the violation, and then offering up aid in helping them come into compliance. In July, we sent out 82 notices to property owners, which I think at this time last year was up. We sent out about 120, so marginally better, but still a ways to go, right? So, and I just want, without going into a lot of detail with this, I had the benefit when I started my work in local government of working in the city of Fort Lauderdale in 2013 and being assigned as kind of the new kid there, the project of working on A1A on converting the lights to amber lights because of the business and the commercial activity. If everyone's familiar with A1A in Fort Lauderdale, and getting that into compliance. Very bureaucratic issue. I got to work with Florida Fish and Wildlife, Florida DEP, FDOT, Broward County, you name it. So I got a good taste of what bureaucracy looks like, but also in the aim of trying to get to a system where people feel safe, but also we're mindful of our environment and working to convert lights to sea turtle friendly. So I'm very familiar with the issue and working towards that and the benefit that it provides, because a lot of tourists come to Fort Lauderdale, not just to experience Fort Lauderdale, but to experience the environmental condition that Fort Lauderdale is in during sea turtle nesting season in hopes of seeing a sea turtle come out and hatch and seeing the hatchlings and going out on those expeditions. I got to experience it. It was incredible. And disorientation is a big issue. It's a big concern. And so certainly even anyone that does walks on the beach at night will see that we are working towards getting our condos, getting some of our residential properties, getting some of our rental properties mindful of what our sea turtle lighting ordinance is and getting them compliant. So oftentimes, in July, based off the survey from Clearwater, we sent out notices. We've had good interaction with neighbors, and it's an education. But we also know that after education comes, enforcement, right? You try to get compliance, can't get that, then you go through enforcement. So we'll be working on that. But it is something that we're certainly mindful of. We're working with our neighbors in getting them to where they need to be. We're working with Clearwater Marine Aquarium. We'll start having more of interactions with them. And I think they acknowledge our efforts and they're appreciative of our efforts just as we're appreciative of all the work that they do. But it is a partnership that we hope to kind of close the gaps on. We'll be working towards that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this particular point in time, I'd like to ask Matt to give us a update.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. As you know, we have some pending litigation, and 2 of those cases were brought by the group Homes Not Hotels Inc. We did receive an order on summary judgment ruling in our favor in the Sunshine case. That order leaves some decisions to be made, and I request a shade meeting so we can discuss those sometime in the near future. Also, we have been in settlement negotiations on the other case, and we've been advised as of Monday that Homes Not Hotels would like to accept the last settlement offer made. And we had a request from their counsel yesterday to put it on the agenda. Obviously, the agenda was already published by then. If the commission wants to consider it, we could put it on with a motion and then majority vote to add it as an emergency item. The other alternative is we conduct further discussions regarding the settlement agreement based on some change in circumstances. At the same time, we discuss the issues that I mentioned in the first case. So I'll leave it to the commission's wishes.
Okay, so at this particular point in time, I'm going to open up to the commission to see if, from what I understand, and I'm going to repeat what you said, we made an offer to Homes Not Hotels, and they want to accept our current offer.
Yeah, essentially, yes. I mean, there was a little more back and forth, but that's where the last thing was, and they've come back in my response. There was an offer, a counter offer, and then a response to that counter offer, which changed our original offer some, and they now are saying they'll accept that.
Okay. At this particular point in time, I'm going to open up to the commission for discussion.
I would like to combine it with the other Sunshine meeting, since we have to have a Sunshine meeting, and I haven't had a chance to read any of the documents. I'd like to read them before voting on them.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else?
I agree. I'd like to see it as part of the Sunshine meeting, particularly because I believe there's some new circumstances that might affect our decision.
Okay. John?
I agree.
Okay.
And Hillary would like to chime in.
That's what I was going to ask next. Yes, Commissioner King. You have the floor.
Thank you. I could not hear everything that Commissioner Watt said, but I think the general consensus that we're building, and I agree with that this is the case, that we now have a slight change in circumstances. I would much prefer that we have the opportunity to discuss and shape meetings before we make a potentially rash decision tonight.
So with the consensus of the commission, what I'm understanding is that we want to have a shade meeting. Matt is calling for a shade meeting. Could we all pull out our calendars and see what we could do about expediting this? Would that be acceptable?
We can do that, or we can have the city clerk coordinate with everybody right after the meeting.
And Commissioner King will be able to participate remotely for that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good. Okay, so, Lauren, will you take care of that for us?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So at this particular point in time, we're going to open the floor to the city commission. We'll start with you, if you don't mind.
First I just want to say I had
the opportunity to go to my first Florida League conferences last week with many members of the commission, and it was a really, really great event. I learned a lot. There was great networking opportunities, a lot of resources and information, some of which I am hopeful to bring back to the city that may be beneficial, maybe some things that we can take advantage of. And so it was a great opportunity, definitely worthwhile. The second item I had is I just wanted to give a shout out to Brian and his team. I had attended the Big C meeting, and during that Duke had a presentation, and they talked about turtle lighting in their presentation. I had the opportunity to speak to Brian about that and learn about his background. And quickly thereafter, you guys moved and got the Florida Marine Corps out for turtle lighting. So I think that's great, and I'd like to see how more frequently we can do that as well. And that's all I have for today, so thank you.
Commissioner Bigelow.
Yes, I had gone down to the Florida League of Cities conference. It was my first time down there. It seemed like the subject was municipal leadership and communication with major things and communication with residents. I was able to go to the trade show. They had a large trade show, and able to meet some of the people at the expo that were able to offer services to Indianola Beach or to compete with services that we always have. I've already directed some of these people to our city manager, who has some meetings all set up on some of these with some of these vendors to help the city. Janet Wilson has a whole recap right here of everything too, which she'll talk about more. But it was also able to meet and talk to other cities, including beach cities, that are having some of the same issues that we're having, able to talk and collaborate with them a little bit on situations that they've been able to get under control, that they lost control of quite a while ago. But it was very informative. It was a good meeting. It was top notch. We've met a lot of the large vendors, and they all did a super good job. So,
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor, I'm going to jump to you.
On the local front, IRB Homes Putt-Putt Committee has been meeting and finalizing details for the October 3rd event. This year, 18 holes, back 9 and front 9, north and south of Walsingham. They're now also collecting some swag items, so hopefully the city will give me some things to include in bags. Then on to the Florida League of Cities Conference. This was my 3rd year. I have submitted a more detailed report that is available. I received my gold certificate for participating in league trainings and legislative activities. So that was exciting because I worked my way up from bronze, and Kelly's starting that progression now because she got her bronze. So congratulations, Kelly. Thank you. I received also 3 favorite sessions just to Beyond the Cone, Practical Disaster Playbook for Florida Cities. Great panel that included the Florida Division of Emergency Management person Kevin Guthrie, as well as emergency managers and city managers from several cities. The state has come up with a slogan. It's prepare to recover. I believe Helena Milton was a big eye-opener. So a couple of the things that they talked about was the Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation, so that you can front load forms on the website so they can review procurement contracts beforehand. That was a big thing they emphasized. And also to make sure you give elected officials a job during a disaster. And I think that was something that also came out of our task force, that we kind of felt like, okay, we want to do something, what do we do? So assign us something so we know from moment one. And he emphasized, do not make a decision based on money. Let Kevin know, and he's going to find the money. So we'll take that to heart if we need to. I was very impressed with the first general session keynote speaker, Doris Kearns Goodwin. She was a presidential historian, biographer, political commentator, and Pulitzer Prize-winning author, whose husband Richard was an aide and speechwriter for Presidents Kennedy and Johnson. It was a presentation was done fireside chat style with last year's FLC president, Holly D. Smith. And they started from the Kennedy administration through present, highlighting events she and her husband were a part of. It was just fascinating to me. And then the property tax amendment general session. Former Senator Jeff Brandis, one of the speakers, and his perspective on the whys behind, the unknowns, and how to approach were very thought-provoking. He also was one of the two individuals that brought the lawsuit against the wording, which resulted in Amendment 3 being rewritten. Then on to Suncoast League of Cities. The advocacy team meeting, we discussed plan changes to our Tallahassee travel program so we can get our biggest impact. I will once again be participating in the program on behalf of IRB and the Suncoast League. And then in our general membership meeting, we discussed the proposed legislative priorities for 2027. One significant wording and focus change that we are going to be including is shifting the focus from home rule to taxpayer rights and freedoms. At this point, the legislators have pretty much turned off a deaf ear to the term home rule. But when you equate something to its effect on taxpayers, which is where their votes come from, they tend to wake up a little bit more. So our verbiage on these priorities are going to be unveiled and then voted on at our September meeting.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Wilson. At this particular point in time, I'm going to ask for Commissioner Hillary. Is she here?
Hi. Yeah, no, I'm still here.
Okay,
Sorry.
you have the floor.
You're out. Thank you. It'll be really brief since I have not been there participating in something. I will say I'm really disappointed I was not able to attend for League of Cities. Now, this is the second year in a row I've missed it, so I hope I get the chance next year. But I more of a question, I think, for all of the rest of you who attended. It sounds from your brief reports and then Jan's more detailed one that there are so many things that are available to us that we could line up with and align with our strategic goals that we set for ourselves back in the spring. I'm wondering if this is an opportunity for a city workshop that we could discuss and figure out how we tie one commissioner to each of the 5 goals and where there's opportunities for us to tie into things that are being done, the things that we learned at FLC, certainly the prepare to recover, that aligns very much with our hurricane recovery and the home rule / taxpayer rights and freedoms. I mean, all of these things really align with our strategies that we set in place. So just a question for all of us, should we consider a workshop where we can aggregate this information and tag each commissioner to follow through with some of those items?
Are you closed? Are you done?
I think so. I'm asking a question.
Okay.
So response at this point in time.
Well,
we can table it, then we'll make it a future agenda item.
Well, so if you're done with your 3-minute conversation, I would completely agree with that. Hillary, what we're actually doing right now is I've already had a conversation with Ryan. I'll kind of step back. I want to talk about the Florida League of Cities meeting. I went into this meeting, again, our city has not participated in this. Vice Mayor Wilson has been the movement that has made this happen. Our predecessors did not want to be there. Our former city manager did not want to be there. I went in with the idea that this was a political organization. I came out with I went in with the tip of the iceberg. I came out with the resources that we have. We have teams. We've got co-op pricing among all the cities. I spoke with one of the Florida League of Cities directors, Clay. He said, we can bring the team in and we can audit your insurance, your employee benefits, and we could probably save you 15 to 20% and keep everybody whole or better. I spoke to another gentleman in this commission meeting, and they said, oh, well, we're already working with a couple of municipalities on the beaches on your side. We can actually come in and help you deal with the building and doing a building evaluation and all that. So I do believe, Hillary, that we do need to follow through with that and find the specialty. I know Commissioner Kelly has an immense amount of experience with HR. I think it would be great for her to jump in on that. But I think we should have a workshop and kind of move on with that. I also had the opportunity to speak with the government liaison for Airbnb. We had a very candid conversation about collaboration, about working together, about what we want to do. And I'm going to bring something to the focus, is that Indian Rocks Beach is in the spotlight. Everybody is watching us in regard to this. Airbnb, Jay, the gentleman I spoke to, he said he would welcome to come over here and talk to us about it. We are collaborating with them in helping them communicate our ordinance and some of our expectations and all that as we continue to work with Catalyst, our lobbyists, and moving forward. But a lot of opportunities, every time I turn around, dealing with what Commissioner Bigelow said, we've got a lot of municipalities in the same situation that we're in. We also have a lot of municipalities that are concerned about this tax shift, and they're wondering where they're going to go with it. So that is one thing. And it's not just a tax shift, it's about control. It's about home rule. It's about, as the Vice Mayor said, it's about taxpayer rights and freedom. It's about choice. And we're going to kind of move on to that. But with it, I want to kind of close on more of a community. Oktoberfest is right around the corner for Action 2000. Please check your Facebook pages, volunteers. We love our community. We want to embrace our community. I see the president of Action 2000 sitting, nodding his head, yes. So please, come be a part of it. And you know what? Action 2000 isn't just about Oktoberfest. It's about community. We have monthly social gatherings and meetings. You get to have a glass of wine or a beer before the meeting, which is truly appreciated on some nights. But with that, a lot of opportunities to reach out to our community, to get involved and move forward. So at this particular point in time, I'm going to move on to the next items. We have work session items. We have Forward Pinellas coming up, and I believe we have Whit that's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm Whit Langton. I'm the Executive Director of Forward Pinellas. And I've enjoyed working in Indian Rocks Beach for a large part of my career, both as a consultant back 20, 25 years ago, and over the 11 years that I've been the Executive Director. I can keep this fairly informal. If we have a PowerPoint presentation coming up, we can just scroll through that a little bit. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the countywide and regional issues that we're dealing with right now that indirectly affect Indian Rocks Beach, but I'm not going to be very granular today. So let me just first start with what Forward Pinellas is. We are a land use planning and transportation planning organization that has been established through state law and federal law. And on the state law side, we are the Pinellas Planning Council, and we have a responsibility for carrying out the Pinellas County Charter of countywide planning. It's not done by the county commission, it's done by Forward Pinellas, which represents all 24 cities in the county. The transportation side is a federally mandated organization, and we are the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And we have a single governing board that serves both of those to address land use and transportation countywide. We are unique in the state of Florida. There's not another organization created just like us. I think the county commission and others had a lot of foresight in creating this organization in 2011. Next slide, please. This is our governing board of 19 elected officials. The beaches are represented by Mayor Love of Madeira Beach, and the Big C votes to establish a person for that 2-year term, and that term can be renewed. For a transportation priority standpoint, we do develop an annual list of transportation priorities for all of Pinellas County. And we use that to align transportation funding with land use and redevelopment goals that have been established countywide in consultation and partnership with every local government. And then we work with the Florida Department of Transportation to advance those local priorities. Now, we advance those priorities through a number of different means. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but we do offer local government grants that are open now. That call for projects is open now, started in July, and it'll carry through, I believe, November. And then in March, we will select the awardees. And we've established this competitive program for about 10 years, and we've awarded about $10 million in those years directly to local governments. And that can be in the form of planning dollars that can help a community work through some issues, or it can be in capital projects that actually help construct the project. As an example, some of the planning projects that we've assigned or that we have completed, they can be community workshops, visioning workshops, special transportation studies and analyses. And I like to use the city of Dunedin as an example because they applied for a planning grant for Skinner Boulevard, which is State Road 580. They were awarded those funds. They worked with the community to come up with a concept. They applied for the construction dollars, and then we were able to contribute to the completion of Skinner Boulevard as a street that really will enhance their economic success in that part of their redevelopment area. You can see a few of the planning grants that have been awarded over the years. We try to be equitable geographically around the county. And Kansas City was awarded funds last year. They were the first time they were ever awarded any funds, and they're excited. And we're actually managing the work for them because they have a very small staff. Next slide, please. The construction capital grants up to $3 million, and that may not complete, a large project. The Dunedin project that I mentioned ended up being about, I think, ultimately about $15 million. But what happened is the city had its share that they were funding. We put in $1 million at the time, and then FDOT put in some. When cost rose, the state of Florida matched those dollars with state funds and federal funds, not with our $1 million, but because we had contributed, we had put it on the priority list, that opened up additional avenues for funding. So even though we cap our funds at $3 million, that can grow in partnership at the state level. Funded capital grants, we just finished 34th Street in St. Petersburg, wide sidewalks, safer roadway for that growing area. Rosary Road is under construction in Largo now, and I mentioned a few others. But we do things like traffic signal upgrades, so it's not just modifying the roadway itself. The timeline for our call for projects, as I mentioned, they are due this fall. We have an advisory committee that meets to help develop those recommendations. The planning funds are available as of July 1st, and you have a year to spend those. The construction dollars are awarded as part of a 5-year DOT work program, and they're available at the end of the 5-year work program, so 2032, which does give communities time to work through design and flesh out those details for those dollars to become available. So now I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about some of the changes that are happening with our organization. We have a special act of the Florida legislature that enabled the Pinellas Planning Council to exist and also to have it be part of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We merged those organizations as part of revisions to the special act that finally took effect in 2014. And then I was hired to be the executive director in 2015 to oversee that merger. I mentioned that it took 5 years because we're doing it again. And I'm not really excited about it, but we need to do it. It's a process that really needs the legislative delegation to initiate that. It has to be initiated by the House of Representatives, and then ultimately it needs to be approved and then supported by the governor. The reason that we're doing it is because we have recognized that as Pinellas County evolves, as our communities evolve, we need to evolve too as an organization and pivot to be where we need to be. So we have a broad policy framework that affects all 25 local governments regarding land use and developments. Because we're a compact county, we have local governments that just kind of run right into each other, not a lot of differentiation, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to have wildly different rules between those local governments. But we do allow a lot of variation within local government. So what we tend to do is establish the top limits on density and intensity of land uses, and then local governments can choose to go to those limits, but they can't go over. And they can choose to go much lower. In fact, Largo, we granted much higher levels of intensity in their US 19 Roosevelt area, and they chose not to take full advantage of that and settled on a lower density because that was appropriate for them. So we don't dictate what local governments can do, but we do review and check your comprehensive plan and land development regulations and land use changes for consistency with the countywide framework. The reason we have to change this special act is because we are also having discussions with Pasco and Hillsborough County and our legislative delegation about merging our transportation planning organizations to create a regional transportation planning body rather than county-based organizations. And the special act references our governing board of the Pinellas Planning Council as being the same as the MPO. So if that merger were to happen, then the Pinellas Planning Council wouldn't have a governing board anymore because it no longer would have a Pinellas County MPO. We would have a regional MPO, and we don't really want Pasco and Hillsborough commissioners voting on land use decisions in Pinellas County. In addition to that, as I mentioned, we are looking at ways to streamline the countywide process, so things that are easier for local governments to do, smaller parcels, maybe out of the coastal high hazard that don't involve residential properties, those can be streamlined. And that takes some changes in the special act. So in addition to that, if then clause, if we merge, we need to create a new PPC board, then we are also advancing some streamlining provisions that would make it easier for applicants and local governments to navigate the countywide planning process. And I'd be happy to share those with you if you want to review those. Our subcommittee that's comprised of a subset of our board has one more meeting next week, and then we'll finalize those. And I think I found one of our delegation members to serve as a sponsor for that local bill. When we get a bill sponsored, we are going to be asking all local governments to endorse those changes. And we did that back in 2011 when we began the merger of the MPO and the PPC. And we see a similar process where we would ask every local government to endorse those changes. So we're not ready yet, but just a heads up that we're coming back and we'll ask that. And we'll work with your city manager and legal team to make that happen. So this is the scope of the subcommittee. They've been really looking at the responsibilities with or without the MPO merger of the Pinellas Planning Council. And also to produce those draft changes. So we're ready. And this little timeline here just outlines that it's a complex process. But by November of this year, after the new legislature has their organizational session and the date and the legislative delegation meets, then hopefully we'll have them file that bill. So on to the MPO merger. This has been years in the making. In 2023, Senator Nick DeSegli filed a bill that required us to study the feasibility of whether Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas County should merge. Now, a little note, Florida is unique in that a lot of our MPOs are county-based. We have 27 of them in the state of Florida. But in the rest of the United States, they're typically multi-counties, regional organizations. I think Atlanta has 22 MPOs. North Central Texas has many counties that serve the MPO. So we're looking at an aberration. Orlando has 3, and Sarasota, Manatee to the south has 2 counties in their MPO. So this isn't unique in Florida, but there's been some very clear legislative intent. For years, we've resisted that merger. It was first suggested by Governor Childs after the 1990 census, and we said, oh no, we're too distinct. Pinellas is highly developed, Pasco is very rural, Hillsborough County has a different dynamic as well. But the public doesn't really care about boundaries when they travel, and we're having such growth. We're not creating any more beaches. We have people coming over from those counties. We need to think about making sure we're getting what we need for our transportation system. Next slide, please. So the motivation for this really is to ensure that Tampa Bay is being competitive for transportation investments over the next 20 to 30 years. And Orlando has done a really good job, so has Jacksonville, of bringing in a lot of those dollars. And transportation funding, by and large, is discretionary. There is a lot of formula funding based on population, but overwhelmingly, big projects are competitive, whether it's state or federal funds. The West Shore Interchange is a good example. That project is in Hillsborough County, in the city of Tampa, over by the airport. Our county commission and our NPO was the first to identify that as the #1 priority in the region, and we got letters of interest support by just about every local government in the region, and that project was awarded $1.5 billion in 2022. It's now under construction, and it'll be a massive change to the congestion you see going over the Howard Franklin Bridge getting into Tampa every day. So in pursuit of this merger, over about the last year, we have hired a consultant that's helped us kind of work through some of the details of this. As of this week, we have a full package of documents, including an interlocal agreement, a memorandum of agreement or understanding, a set of draft bylaws that only the future board can adopt, but at least we have a draft that they can work from. We have an organizational chart, we have a staffing plan, and a financial plan for the organization. And we're going to be presenting that on September 9th to my board in a work session. And it'll also be presented around the region to the other NPOs. And then hopefully by early 2027, after we get comments and feedback, we'll present it to the 4 decision makers locally. And those are the 3 county commissions, and by federal law, the city of Tampa. They all have to agree. And if they agree, then the governor has to agree. If all that happens, we expect this organization would be ready to go. I think we have a timeline slide next, by 2028. Well, this is just the population breakdown that shows how we arrive at the number of seats on this regional NPO. So I have 19 seats on my board now. We're proposing a 25-seat board to reflect the diversity of the region based on population, which is required by state law. So Hillsborough County would get 10 seats of elected officials. Pinellas would have 8 seats of elected officials. Pasco would have 5. And what we've chosen to do is recommend that 2 additional seats be the staff, the CEO or their designee of the Tampa International Airport and Port Tampa Bay, because those are regional organizations. We all get gas through Port Tampa Bay, and we all travel in and out of Tampa International Airport. I think 33% of their passenger volume comes from Pinellas County, or to Pinellas County, I should say. So the next steps is to take that full package. We really want to wait on the Tampa City Council election, which will be in the spring. After that, we think we'll have everybody in line and we can ask for their votes. If they don't vote for it, I do think that the legislature may force our hand and file a bill in the upcoming legislative session to make this happen. I do know of a member who's inclined to do that. What I have heard is that bill will represent all the staff recommendations. But I'm worried that when you get a bill filed, there's amendments and you never know what's going to happen. So I prefer this to be voted on by locals, making local decisions. Some of our recommendations could change. But I did want you all to be aware of that because it ultimately does affect Indian Rocks Beach, because the way we've recommended it is of those 8 seats that Pinellas County would have, 2 would be for county commissioners, 2 for the city of St. Petersburg, and then there would be a seat for each of the cities that have more than 50,000 population, which is important in federal law. And then we would have 1 seat that would be a rotational seat that would represent smaller cities. And that would be, in theory, appointed by the Pinellas Planning Council. So I'm not sure we'll have a big seat, but we are committed to continuing to have a high level of interaction and involvement with all of our communities here in Pinellas County. And we have a higher burden than Pasco and Hillsborough because there's only 3 cities in Hillsborough County, and there's only 6 cities in Pasco, and they're all very small. But we have 24, and there's just not that much in an incorporated county. And there's a lot of diversity among our cities. So what we propose is that we would have dedicated staff that would be assigned to each county as part of that organizational chart, and we would have liaisons that would work with all of our cities. So I'm confident that we can walk and chew gum at the same time and do big regional things, but also not lose sight of our important grassroots needs to deal with a lot of the issues, whether it's safety on our streets or whether it's walking and bicycling, things like that, they're really local. And it's hard to do those things at the regional scale. We do a lot of technical assistance, and that's done by the MPO and by the Pinellas Planning Council. So we do data visualization that we've done for the city of Indian Rocks Beach. We've helped you with mapping and other types of support. So I do hope, regardless of whatever incarnation we end up with of these two agencies, that you all will consider us an extension of your staff and available. You are paying a millage that supports our services of the Pinellas Planning Council. It's not much, but it does generate about $2 million a year in revenues for us that allows us to be responsive to your needs. And the last slide on here does have my contact information, but there's also a link and a little QR code that tells you a little bit more about Fort Pinellas and what we do, some of the history of our organization. And I encourage folks in the audience who are looking online to take a look at that. And I'm open for any questions, but I did want to just let you know that I'm available and you can pick up the phone and talk to me. And I've really enjoyed meeting with your leadership on the staff level and kind of helping them through some issues too.
I'd like to open it up to the commission first. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't know.
Okay. So it sounds like restructure's going on.
Yeah, it looks
Put
like
it on a top line area.
Right.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions? I see one hand.
Did you want to ask Commissioner King?
I beg your pardon? I will open it up to the floor. May I?
I know Commissioner King, I just didn't know if you wanted to ask
Oh,
Commissioner.
Commissioner, I asked the commission, do you have any questions?
None from Hillary.
None from him.
John Canfield, 448 Harbor Drive South. Well, I read the agenda package twice and I listened to this. And the expression that comes to mind is government is expanding to meet the needs of an expanding government. Look at what they want to do. They want to create a single bureaucracy for Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco. To quote, and this is from up there, align land use, be scared of that. Set priorities, be scared of that. Guide development decisions. And to promote mixed use and accessory dwelling units. We've heard this before. We know that means packing in more SDRs, packing in density. We've seen before what they came when they're helping Indian Rocks Beach. And Fort Pinellas' last design was to decrease all setbacks, all of them, front, side, rear, by 50 to 70%. They want to increase building height from 35 feet to 45 feet along much of Gulf Boulevard. This is our most congested part of the city, and they wanted to give incentives for owners and developers to knock down all the single-story and two-story buildings that make us unique. We already have one building going down there right now, so you can see what it would be like. They don't care about individuality. They want to destroy individuality. What gives Indian Rocks Beach special interest and charm, like Gulfport, like Dunedin, like Safety Harbor, is that we're different and we can take care of ourselves. We won't make changes just when developers have it. We've seen what they wanted. This is just a smokescreen. And just from what little research I did, it talked about giving basically $1 million a year in grants. Their salary and consultants are about $7 million a year, as opposed to $1 million to give away. So just be concerned about what this is about. This is government getting bigger and taking control away from small towns. So please be very careful. And if you have a chance, think you don't want this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, John. From what I understand, the municipalities are going to be the governing. We're very adamant about that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're using your team as a consulting service. I'm looking for general terms here. So.
Yes, absolutely. So we provide technical recommendations to you based on the direction that you provide. And
Okay.
it's basically alternatives for you to consider.
So what, as mayor, what I would encourage Fort Pinellas to do is to perhaps we did a workshop, a strategy session where we envision our city we would provide that to you, and then you would, if we asked for a study, you would take that and incorporate that into the goals and objectives.
We would help you try to achieve that vision that you've articulated.
Yes.
And show you how it could be done.
Okay.
And that's the limits of it.
Okay.
And then ultimately, it's your decision, not our decision.
Any other questions? Okay,
All right.
thank you so much. I
Thanks so
appreciate
much
it.
for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Kelly wants to comment.
Oh. Open it back up.
Yeah, hi. I'd be concerned that the structure of this board would be not real favorable to Pinellas County. Hillsborough County would get 10 seats on this board, plus the airport and the Tampa port are also in Hillsborough, so I would be concerned that they would lean toward projects that Hillsborough County favors. The real loser in this would be Pasco County. They're the fastest growing among our 3 counties, and they would only get 3 seats. I'm not sure that all 3 counties' interests are closely aligned, and I would rather that we work through our individual Congress people and lobbyists among our county to see that our needs are asserted for federal and state funding. So that would be my comments.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Mayor, can I address that just real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
So there is a provision in state law that transportation dollars have to be allocated proportionate to population. So the Department of Transportation every year has to certify that its 5-year work program is equitable based on population. So we would get our fair share based on that.
Okay.
In addition, with the new organization in the interlocal agreement and bylaws, we have provisions that not only would any action involving transportation funding have to have a board majority, it would also have a majority of each delegation. And Pasco County has 5 seats now. And the port and the airport would be, it is true that the port and the airport can only have members of its governing board who live in Hillsborough County, but it's only the mayor and 1 county commissioner on both those boards. The rest are appointed by the governor. And I have talked with some legislators to open up their board to Pinellas and Pasco board members if they truly are a regional organization. But those agencies already vote on the Hillsborough, so we wouldn't give them something they don't already have.
Thank you. At this particular point in time, I'd like to invite Kesley to talk about our floodplain forerunner and provide a floodplain stormwater information. I'll let you talk about it.
Sure. Hi, good evening. Kelsey Whitten from Civil Serve Design Group. I'm the floodplain and stormwater project manager and your acting floodplain manager for Indian Rocks Beach. So this presentation, just for context, was given to the Hurricane Task Force previously, and this is just kind of an update to educate what floodplain management in and of itself is, what it does, what are some key components, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to address those at the end. So what is floodplain management? We're talking about reducing flood risk, protecting your public safety, and supporting resilient development while also continuing to be a part of the NFIP, which is your National Flood Insurance Program. So why it's important? Because we are a barrier community. Almost every structure here infringes into a special flood hazard area, which equates to thousands of structures. Flood losses, as we're all aware, impact not only the property owners, but also your business owners and your tourism. So our goal is to promote community resilience and also preserve the character of Indian Rocks Beach. So in floodplain management, there is a cycle where we have to identify risk. The flood maps are essentially created by FEMA, and that will show where your flood risk is. Later on, we'll talk about Forerunner. That is a tool that we've become now acquainted with to identify your risk and then also provide some more information to each property owner or business owner. Based on your risk, then the floodplain management cycle next establishes requirements. That's where the city comes in to adopt and enforce floodplain management regulations. The next step in that is when somebody permits, that we're ensuring that the construction is indeed compliant with our ordinances. Another facet is protection, so we protect our natural resources, allowing water to have places to go so that we're not flooding out our homes, reducing flood risk exposure. Next step is preparing to respond and recover. So we want to make sure that we have things in place, procedures in place, including how to do substantial damage estimation that will support our recovery and resilience in the event of a disaster. Another component of the floodplain management cycle is we educate and improve. So we share information, we engage the public. That is a combined effort between myself from the civil service side, as well as staff members within the city to provide information to the public. So Indian Rocks Beach and Civil Serve, we've worked together for many years. What we do on the city side is you guys maintain your ordinance, so you adopt and enforce the ordinance that protects public safety. You guys are maintaining your official documentation for your records, and like I said, doing public education and outreach. On my side of the computer, what I do is assist in permit review alongside of Hetty, who does the planning, elevation certificate review, any kind of regulatory assistance, substantial damage assistance, and post-storm support. So to kind of give a breakdown of what the regulatory side of things is with floodplain management, we have FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, that has the National Flood Insurance Program. FEMA is the one who creates your flood insurance rate maps. And then under that, we have the state level, which includes your Florida Building Code. That is some of the most stringent building code in the entire United States, which was propagated after Hurricane Andrew in 1992, when we saw what massive widespread damage there was. A lot of the nation looks to Florida for implementation of their building code. And then the Office of Floodplain Management is housed in the Florida Division of Emergency Management. They are the ones that then increase a higher standard based on what Florida's specific needs are. Next, we have the county level. We utilize the county for our building official. So they are essentially running all of our permitting and reviewing our elevation certificates. But at the end of the day, the City of Indian Rocks Beach, your floodplain management ordinance is what can be at a higher standard. For instance, how Pinellas County has a separate ordinance, and they're a Class 2 CRS. They get better discounts in their insurance. We have that ability here in Indian Rocks Beach to do that as well. You can go to the next slide. So in talking about substantial damage and substantial improvement and hurricane recovery, what is substantial damage? What is substantial improvement? So according to our ordinance, if you exceed 50% of your structure value, and that's the structure, this does not include your pool, this does not include outside structures, sheds, or anything else. If you hit the 50% mark, according to what is on Pinellas County's FEMA or wind loss mitigation letter, at that point that would trigger you to have to elevate, demolish, flood-proof if it's a business, or relocate a home. Those are the 4 acceptable methods for substantial improvement or after substantial damage. So this is really important that as a community, now after the fact, it would be better to, of course, educate prior to, but after the fact, I think a lot of people are identifying that this is a big issue. I'm going to kind of come back. So firm maps, flood insurance rate maps, were implemented for Indian Rocks Beach in 1971. So homes that were built prior to 1971 were not up to that ordinance, right? So this is where we are trying to promote resilience within the community, less flood losses, less loss of potentially life if people don't leave and evacuate. So these are some of the things that you'll see, now we're seeing a lot of home elevations and things and demos and then rebuilds. This is the driving factor behind that. That's federally mandated. Currently we are at 50%. we could drop it in unison with Pinellas County, where they're at 49%, and that's something that we could potentially do, and we can discuss that at a later time. Next slide, please. So, another thing that came up after the storms was people were not documenting their damages, they weren't contacting the city, they wanted to go ahead and get rolling on repairs. They weren't obtaining repairs, so we're seeing a lot of after-the-fact permitting. I just want to remind everybody that do not start repairs without permits. Make sure you document, get in touch with your, not only flood insurance program and your flood insurance carrier, but your homeowner's insurance, because there's going to be some back and forth typically with both of those. Don't assume that you can build back to the prior conditions, again, because if you're not meeting your ordinance and you hit that 50% delineation, there is a potential that you could be making changes to your property, investing money into a property that you may not be able to get permitted after the fact. Don't hire unlicensed contractors, and always carry, the back of your mind that you need to maintain the ordinance and permitting requirements. To make this easier for the community, Indian Rocks Beach has partnered with Forerunner. Forerunner is a cloud-based program. The website is at the bottom. Visit indianrocksbeachflorida.withforerunner.com. This gives the community an opportunity to see any documentation that is on their parcel. So if there's elevation certificates, we're using it as a repository for internal purposes to maintain permitting paperwork. You can go on and review your your finished floor elevation. You can get assistance. So there's a get help button in there that you can click, and it'll send a message to me so that I can respond to whoever that has a question. And of course, my phone number is also available at the very end of the slide, but this also gets increased CRS credits. So if we want to do the next slide, I think that's on next. Yeah, there we go. So I keep talking about flood insurance and CRS compliance. Just a couple things I like to make sure everybody understands. For financial protection with your flood insurance policy, you are capped out at a maximum of $250,000 on a flood insurance policy. It is available to homeowners, business owners, and renters. So that's very important that you can get that individually. You just need to reach out to an insurance agent. I am not an insurance agent. I do have information on it and I can help you, but I don't know the insurance component of it. And if you are selling a property, it is very important that you transfer that coverage, because if the policy lapses, it is a 30-day waiting period before the policy can be issued again. I'm sorry, back one, Robin. CRS compliance. So this is where you get discounted rates for your flood insurance policy, whether it's through Write Your Own or through the NFIP. What that does is for each credit that we go beyond the minimum standard that is set in place, we get more insurance credits. Currently, we are at a class 6, and that is a 20%. We started at a 9 with 5%. Each stair step gets you another 5%. So there are potential activities that we can increase upon and that we can take a look at. Currently, we're doing public outreach and education. We have some open space preservation, a flood warning and response system, and we do already have some higher regulatory standards in place. Okay, and so we just want to remind everybody we're in this together. Being prepared in advance of a storm is probably the most important thing. Knowing your risk and then becoming resilient is, of course, altogether our goal. United. All of our contact information is on there, as well as, I guess my email's not on there, but you can reach me at an office number, and you can also reach me through Forerunner, so it'll come directly to me. So, anybody have any questions?
I'm going to open it up to the commission. Please.
Thank you, Kelsey. Appreciate the presentation, and this is much better than the Hurricane Task Force, and we're getting carried together, so thank you for coming back, I really appreciate it. I just had a quick question about the Class 6 that we are, and I understand there's maybe a list of things that we can do to try to help improve that, and not for today's discussion, but is there actually like a list of things that we can look for?
There's about a 3-inch binder that I have. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can do. It's just a matter of, a bulk of it is going to be within the LDRs and how we can increase higher standards, higher regulatory standards. So a lot of it is in there, and we can do a full assessment if you like.
And when she says LDRs, I want to remind that I am going to be bringing forth a contract to hire a consultant to come in and work with our planning and zoning commission on updating our LDRs.
Thank you, Ron. And then just a follow-up question, if I
Yes,
may, to
please.
that. Can you talk a little, you mentioned just real quickly when you were speaking about the open space, helping with the class status.
Yes.
So what does that look, just for a moment, just what does that look like?
Sure, so it's going to be based off of how much natural land is preserved within the city limits, and you get a portion of the total credits based on your percentage.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Anybody else? Commissioner Key?
Yeah, I do have a quick question or maybe a more comment. Thank you so much, Chelsea. I appreciate all this information. So as we went through our hurricane task force, I think, and Ryan's going to provide a really great report out today in a resolution. But we focused on things that were, I would say, the low-hanging fruit, the things that we could address relatively quickly without making major changes to our building code and other things. So, but our intent is that we will continue that hurricane task force in some fashion that gets to the next stage of not just recovery, but of prevention and resiliency. So I think that feeds in really well with what Kelsey is speaking about here. And it may be mostly in our building code, but sooner rather than later, and I know we'll discuss this as an additional item, but this will come before our planning and zoning board as we look at revisiting our code, whether it's relative to resilience or rebuilding after a hurricane or some other major event. But I can tell you that you will be participating pretty heavily with that conversation as well.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. May I open it up to the floor? Does anybody have any questions?
I'm Kelly Cicerek. I don't know if Kelsey can answer this or not, but the community rating discount that we get of 20%, I was shocked with my insurance policy that my community rating discount only reflected, I think it was $15. And when I dug into that with my Progressive insurance agent who services my FEMA policy, she explained to me that because I have a long-term policy in force, that I had a $3,500 discount for having a policy in force for 20 years in this case. So I couldn't combine those discounts. I guess you top out at a certain discount. So for people that have owned a property for longer and had a FEMA NFIP policy in effect that long, apparently you can't combine those discounts. You don't get to see that 20%. I don't know if you're aware of that or if my information is correct, but this is from one Progressive agent. So.
I have the same thing. I have a policy in force. The states or the federal government's moving towards actualization, the actual value, and they told me that we were subsidized years ago, but we have a cap on the increases. So mine's probably about 15%, $15 as well.
One other comment I just want to make. I had a bad experience with Tidal Basin, and that company, I understand, is still participating in the Forerunner platform. So I don't know if you can speak to what the role of Tidal Basin is going to be going forward, but after Hurricane Helene, they went and did just walk by properties and look to see how high the weed lines were on the properties. And they rated properties as flood damage, and in our case, we weren't flood damage. So we had already taken precautions to keep the water out. So I don't know if you have more information on Tidal Basin and how they would be participating going forward, but I just want to make sure that, that our city is protected from bad information, being used in their assessment. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm going to circle around if you don't mind real quick. No,
Sure.
back to you.
Sure.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. I love the graphs because I'm a picture person. Still color in the lines as well. But with that, I want to kind of say Forerunner. It's something that we brought on as a city. It is a tool, and not only can you use it, but our citizens can use it. You guys can go onto our city website. You can actually key in your address and look at all of your information, and you will be there to help us answer all those tough questions, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
With that, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And again, it's a tool. I encourage you to go home, go up on the computer. It's on our website, and learn a little bit more about your property and all that. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Would you like me to respond to your question?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
So in regards to flood insurance, they are going through a risk rating 2.0. So there will be changes to your policy. It is, yes, capped at a certain amount, but it is substantially going up, as is all insurance throughout the state. So yes, you may be grandfathered in, but there will be increases. So just as awareness, be aware that that is coming. Also, in regards specifically to Tidal Basin, I don't have a response to that particularly. There has to be some sort of general standard of, we expect that the floodwater was yay high, and we estimate that these properties are not at that elevation. There has to be some sort of standard when going and doing what we call windshield assessments to say, okay, this whole entire general area, and we would put them on a substantial damage list. Going forward, though, having a procedure in place to remove people from the substantial damage list is going to be more my type of project. I have boots on the ground type of, hey, how do we do this? How do we take them off? So that would be something that I would be heavily involved in as far as that.
Which will allow them to remodel their homes and move forward quicker.
Correct. And again, documentation. Documenting if you didn't have damage. Time-stamping your pictures. If you don't have a timestamp camera, there is a timestamp camera app that you can download, and it will show your geographic location. It can do lat long. It can do the direction you're facing, and everything you could possibly need. So if you have all of that documentation, then we shouldn't have any issue with removal from a substantial damage determination. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Kelsey.
At this particular point in time, we're going to move to the consent agenda.
Mayor, we do have the budget presentation.
Oh, budget. There it is, the presentation. Robin, I'm trying to skip it. But anyway, please continue. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. No worries. I think some people would rather. But thank you, Mayor and Commissioner. And as we provided at the previous budget meeting, just to give you an update as to where we are. We did meet with the Budget and Finance Review Committee. They took a look over the budget, provided some very good suggestions, and I'll go through them as I go through the presentation. No really significant changes, just a few minor, but again, once this is finalized, we'll have a little bit more of definitions and inclusions of some of the terms, but for this purpose, again, we're tying our budget with the strategic plan that the commission adopted back in May. Really, we didn't have any changes to this part, the introduction and the highlights, other than, again, just to go over, we're keeping the same millage rate for the fourth consecutive year, 1.73 mills. We did have a 5.26% of the assessed value of all real and personal property in the city. That will generate approximately an additional $201,000 in revenue. our property tax collection for next year. Again, it's not subject to the proposed property tax amendment that voters will vote in November. That would, if that were to be adopted, that would take effect for the following fiscal year, for fiscal '28. So that's why you don't see any of that reference in this document. Where the Budget Finance Committee really helped out was looking at the vacation rentals. We go to number 4 on this page, the adjustments, revenue adjustments to the budget. We did recommend an increase in the vacation rental registration fee from $300 to $600 per unit. As you can see, that would generate approximately an additional $300,000 in revenue based on 1,000 vacation rental units. What I didn't include here, but will in the final, because it's a little bit of an estimate, is also a late fee for any vacation rental registrations that do not renew within the 1 year. As the commission is aware, the commission did approve the city acquiring software through a company, a vendor called CitizenServe, where we will hopefully starting, could be as early as next month, where we will be using dedicated specific software for the vacation rental registrations, and that will allow for just to consolidate various spreadsheets and various processes into one area that will facilitate sending out renewal notices, reminders to all the property owners that hey, you have your 60 days for you to renew your vacation rental registration. So that will kind of make that a little bit more efficient, and certainly the recommended late fee was $200 per unit, which again is comparable to what other cities are currently charging if you don't file within the allotted 12-month period. And as we've discussed before several times, the budget for next year, we are creating a parking fund. I did adjust the revenue for that based on activity that we've been experiencing this so far in the first 3 months. People are still coming to Indian Rocks Beach, and they're still obviously paying, well, quite a bit are paying to park. So we've, I can't scroll down. There we go. Oops. You can see the adjustment for the parking fund, just a little bit in additional revenue, up to 1.775 and estimated 1.5 million. As we shared before, approximately 750 of those will be transferred for our capital improvement fund for stormwater flood control infrastructure improvements, specifically some of the outfall improvements, and they are listed in subsequent pages toward the end of this document, really as examples. Those 2 projects are really just to show they are in the list that was created by CivilServe a few years ago. We're going to review with, have been discussing with CivilServe, and we're going to review internally how to proceed and really which projects. CivilServe has applied for a couple of grants for some of those proposed capital projects, some of those stormwater outfalls. So depending on what we hear back for those grants, then we would be able to prioritize the capital budget moving forward. And really no other changes from the last iteration of the budget. We're 5% cost of living salary increases for city staff. You can see approximately 93,000 in additional salaries. We discussed additional position in the code enforcement to help with code enforcement and parking, and the library position to become permanent. So we're only adding 1 additional position. We did discuss last time the sheriff's budget has a 6% increase in the agreement. And just to remind everyone, that is inclusive of all of the law enforcement services that are provided and any units that we might need, everything from the marina to canine to SWAT, et cetera. Even the use of a helicopter, should we ever need to have them if they're looking for someone. So the rest of the document really doesn't, sorry, I'm not used to this computer. We're adding some of the graphs to show, but wanted to go the actual general fund So the budget includes three major funds: the general fund, the parking fund, and our solid waste fund. And there's a slide to get to the slide. But in just the general fund budget, we are looking at a little over 6.1 million in revenue and a little over 5.6 million in expenditures. This page just kind of documents where the additional revenues, and again, some of that, the other change that we made from the last presentation is moving some of the expenditures out of the general fund that will be covered by the parking fund. So when I get the slide for the parking fund, includes public works expenditures that are now previously in the general fund but are now in the parking fund. Certain expenditures, including some of the street access improvements or enhancements, paying for the additional or any changes to the bollards at the street avenues, to the buoys out on the water. But I did put some of that level of detail. I think one of the recommendations I think you received from your Florida League of Cities were what information to put out. Certainly the more information we can put out, we can include our accounts payable when we pay checks, all of that. There's no limit to what we can put out, data that we can put out, and we will certainly look to incorporate that, and even in the budget. As I've shared before, the budget for this city has had even the salaries for personnel in each department, so there's no question as to what somebody's positional pay is. But again, really the other change is moving. So the public works budget, there isn't much of an increase from the current year to next year. And really the total budget has a little over a 4.5% expenditures increase. But again, the parking fund is covering some of those additional or just increases or other expenses. But again, the biggest part of the parking fund is to pay for the capital projects, which will allow the city to really begin to complete and utilize that funding that would otherwise taken some years or would otherwise not available. And again, as I mentioned in the capital improvement fund, while we will look to add some of the specifics, but once we decide which projects will begin this coming next fiscal year, we will bring those back to the commission to explain and essentially obtain approval for those expenditures that we're kind of including in the budget for next year. Again, just moving the money from the parking fund into capital improvement fund. And really the last comment that came from the Budget Finance Committee was looking at our reserves, and I included in this document, which will have some version in the final budget document that you will approve regarding the city's reserves. And our reserves will likely be approaching, in the general fund, just to be clear, likely approaching toward the $5 million range at the end of this year, even after the expenses from the storm and having to pay for all the debris removal, et cetera. Although that didn't impact the general fund, that impacted the solid waste fund. But one of the recommendations was to utilize some of the city's reserves. So I created a draft policy that we'll bring back to the commission, a reserves policy, and what specific amount of revenue to keep. And the proposal was to keep about 3.5 million in reserves, and then at all times, and have that as a reserve. But of course, it can be higher than that. The idea is not to go below that. But the Budget Finance Committee did recommend use some of that reserves for these capital projects as well. So approximately about $1 million.
Does FEMA owe us anything else?
Yes, so we are still waiting to receive money from FEMA primarily for the debris removal costs. Those were a little over $3 million in the debris removal. And while we don't believe, and FEMA has already told us that a certain portion is not eligible to be reimbursed to the city, but we are continuing to get them. We did have a little over $300,000 that was obligated, meaning it's in the works to be paid, but we still continue to work with them to get as much as we possibly can be reimbursed. And of course, that would go back into the solid waste fund.
How much would we be missing after the 300?
About 1.4 million still. And again, the city spent, as I said, a little over 3 million. FEMA has paid the city $1,050,000, which was essentially approximately 50% of the original cost of the estimate to remove all the debris removal post-storms. The expenses ended up being higher. All the debris did get removed fairly quickly, fairly efficiently, but at a little bit of a higher cost. So we still just continue to try to get whatever we can from FEMA and try to get all of it back from FEMA.
Maybe we could use the Florida League of Cities.
Well, then that's, and we've had from at least one neighbor that, reach out to our legislative, both at the state and the federal, and so I think we will certainly look to do that as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, please.
So, Robin, I just wanted to ask a couple quick questions. I think one of the recommendations from the Finance Committee was looking at the street sweeper and possibly looking to not purchase but rent or outsource. So is that a decision that we'll look at a little more in depth in the future, or when is that?
I think that's something we can continue to look at. Some cities have gone to outsourcing the street sweeping, and so we are looking into that. It's just something we put in the budget to purchase a street sweeper. Over time, you end up spending about the same amount of money, but not having your own street sweeper, you don't have to deal with the storage or the maintenance or having a service coming in, but eventually the costs kind of equal over time. Street sweepers tend to last up to 5 years. I know, and just quickly, one other city where they were spending $20,000 a month to have their streets swept. So a little high. Another city was about 10,000. Again, depends on number of miles that you're looking to have swept and the frequency. So that's one thing to do. You don't have as much control. You have a contract, and the contract stipulates, and you just need to monitor to make sure that the streets are swept, per the agreement, et cetera. So that was a good recommendation, just due to the actual cost of the street sweeper, which are approaching $350,000 for one street sweeper. Expensive. Garbage trucks are expensive as well. Thank goodness we don't have to buy fire apparatuses. We leave that up to cheaper. So they're even more expensive.
Thank you, Robin. And then I want to ask a second question. Do we have an update on Waste Connections? I think we're close to that 60-day period.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. No, we're getting close. I will tell you that we're looking at all options, including going to another provider, hopefully at a lower rate, because our contract is ending at the end of the year. But talked to the Public Works Director, and we've already met with some folks. So the goal is to bring something back no later than October. But it would be to, at this point, and it's a different discussion, but at this point, continue with recycling services to try and get a lower rate.
Thank you.
And maybe on that same vein, I would say that I had a discussion at the expo with the person who was here last month, and I didn't get the impression that they really understood the education component in making that part of the contract. So.
No, and that's part of the conversation too. It's an opportunity to reset everything, including education, information, enforcement, all of that when it comes to recycling.
I do have a question on the recommendation to go down to 3.5 million in the reserve. Given the fact that we had over 6 and we spent over 6 last time, what is their basis for making that recommendation?
Well, that was my suggestion to them, and trying to get some number, and they said, well, that would probably be the lowest that we would want to go to, just to kind of represents about 60% of our general fund, but really could be any amount. I think that's looking at what the city spent last time. Hopefully it won't be that. Let's hope it doesn't happen again, but really could be any between that and upwards of 4 million or 4.5 million.
Generally, I will tell you, just in my experience, that reserves are usually kept recommended at about 20% of your budget. The reason, and a lot of it's philosophical. If you're paying taxes, you want to be able to provide something. If you're paying taxes, you want to be able to provide something rather than just storing the money. Now, I will also though recognize, right, that you lived through experience. Those reserves helped when we went through the hurricane, right? So there's a balance that you're trying to strike with making sure that you have enough to respond to something like that, but you're not keeping too much in reserve where that money can go back into the community as an investment.
I'm looking at our budget and I multiplied 20%, and that, I don't think would have gotten us through the hurricane.
No, understood.
So I appreciate the averages, but I'd love to see what the beach communities are doing as well.
Yeah, and I know of a few, and they range between 8 to probably to about 33%, the ones that I've personally been in, but we can certainly look at others, and as Ryan's correct, it's usually normally between like 25, and rarely would you find somebody higher than 40% is pretty rare. But back to,
and with that, what would we do with the funds?
Reinvest in the capital projects or really anything. Sorry, we hadn't really come up with.
One thing we talked about,
like purchase the lot at Congo Boulevard and turn it into a.
That was something that was talked about, right? We did talk about stormwater. I mean, that's really been on our brain, right? Ever since we established the parking fund plans of, we don't have the stormwater assessment fee.
Mm-hmm.
And so in lieu of that, it's, we have stormwater needs, so it's, finding the money to go and invest in that. But that is something, right? Purchasing property, things like that, could be used for that. But it would be certainly at the discretion of this commission.
Absolutely.
Just one, and related to the storms, because Vice Mayor, I believe you mentioned the FROC, the Florida Recovery Obligation calculation. So we have, began that process, and we're along and we're registered, and we should be ready for the next go-around because we missed for the current year, but we're well in progress to be a part of that. So should anything similar in the future, then we would be eligible to receive funding much quicker and a little bit more amount than, again, all things considered, quicker than before. And
Awesome.
It's a very good program. I hope it does continue. There's been a change at Florida Division of Emergency Management, so hopefully that does continue. Of course, FEMA continues to evolve as well. The City of Indian Rocks Beach is in its fourth program manager over the reimbursement process for recovering those funds. So constantly a little bit of turnover, but certainly being a part of that FROC will be beneficial for the city in the future.
Robin, do you know if our contracts are preloaded in the system already? They said they can evaluate and approve their contractors ahead of time.
Yes, because we're using the county contracts, but I'll make sure that they're in, obviously, for us, so, which I believe.
Thank you.
Oh, and I wanted to add just one other thing I did, and I apologize, did a couple of the percentages in the pie chart section that lists general fund revenues by source, and just some of the percentages are a little bit, I didn't quite update all of them when I added the vacation rental registration, so in case you look through it, they are a little bit off. We'll correct them for the next meeting. And also our next two meetings, we will have the public hearings and first reading for the budget on Wednesday, September the 9th. So it's a Wednesday, September the 9th, the first reading, a public hearing and reading, and then the second meeting will be on Wednesday, September the 23rd. They both begin at 6 p.m., I believe, and they'll be held here.
I do want to just take the opportunity, though, to certainly thank Rob and the work of the Finance and Budget Review Committee. At our last meeting, we told them that kind of concluded the work of the board, unless we felt something needed to go back to them. But they did a great job and really appreciate their service to the community.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Robin. Thank you. Now it's time for the consent agenda. The consent agenda, I'll go ahead and say all these items consist of non-controversial housekeeping items required by law. So I'm really to seek for a motion to approve or pull out any of these items for further discussion.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
I second the motion.
Commissioner Watt,
Yes.
Commissioner King,
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes,
All right, motion carries.
thank you. Public hearings, there are none. We're going to move to action items. The first action item is 7.1, discussion of and direction of the Neighborhood Advisory Board. I'm going to let you
I can kick it off and then really turn it back over to you and any of our neighbors that are in attendance that certainly want to speak on this. So as I mentioned, our Finance and Budget Review Committee finalized their work. The Hurricane Task Force has finalized their work. And so back in the spring, we created the Neighbor Advisory Board, and I want to start shifting gears to engaging them, getting them active, and meeting with them. The goal is to meet with them mid-September. We'll establish a date for that. I did let the Neighbor Advisory Board members that that'll be forthcoming. But the intent of this item is really just to kind of open up the door and start having a conversation of what you, the commission, would like to see this Neighbor Advisory Board, your appointees, discuss and take on. I think just generally from my perspective, we created an awesome strategic plan. And a lot of great work went into that, and there was a lot of focus on building community and creating, a stronger community. I think that in many ways can kind of serve as the overarching kind of aim of the board, but it's really up to this commission and its advisory board members to decide on what items under that building kind of community umbrella that you'd like to see them discuss and again take on. Staff will put together the agenda. Staff will be at the meetings. Staff will work with the neighbor advisory boards, develop a relationship with the neighbor advisory board. But ultimately, kind of get out of the way and let the neighbor advisory board advise the city commission. So I thought it would just be an opportunity before we do meet in September to just have a bit of a dialogue. There's really no action item associated with this, but I just wanted to put it under here so we could have a discussion. And with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor and the commissioners.
At this particular point in time, I'm going to open up for the commission to kind of discuss the Neighborhood Advisory Board and maybe some things you might like to have them work on or look at.
Well, I guess first off, I'd like to see what items they might like to see appear on our agenda in the coming months. What are those critical issues that they're seeing in the community that they would like to see us address?
Okay, thank you.
I like that idea, Commissioner Wilson. A couple ideas I had, I'm just throwing them out there, is the Cobb Park, the parking for the Little League, and the pickleball. Perhaps they could help with that, and maybe also look at pickleball and find a way to sort of manage that a little bit better. And then shifting gears, this is a big kind of world ocean thought, but I'm going to throw it out there. How do we attract residents to our community? And that's a big issue, but it's a big board with a big brains, and I think they can help us with that.
Commissioner Bigelow.
Well, from the advisory board, I'd like to, I appointed Chris Plumley, who's been, their family's been in this community for a long time, and they've done a super good job. And they manage short-term rentals. They manage short-term rental homes also in middle neighborhoods. And it would be good to get a neutral perspective of what is on their side. We seem to look at it in one direction, and we want to make sure we hear what they're saying and they hear what we're saying. That's one of the reasons why I made the nomination of
Commissioner King, would you have anything to add?
I do, and it may be a repeat for one I really am having a hard time hearing Commissioner Roth. But as we talked about our five, major goals as part of our strategy, I think one of the compelling ones, I know one of our neighbors, Donovan, spoke about this today, having a plan for how we market and represent ourselves as a great place for families, for full-time residents. Maybe this is an opportunity to find an intersection there with our neighbor advisory board and perhaps our Catalyst PR and marketing firm that we've hired. I'd really like to see us have a really solid plan on how we market ourselves and what do we think it takes to make us into a community where people actually want to live and not just live.
Thank you. One thing when a lot of us ran was we wanted the voice of the community. We wanted to have the community's voice. I'm gonna kind of lean with Vice Mayor that I would love to hear what's important to them, what they feel like they need to do. We're already up here. I know we're working on a pickleball alternative. I know that we're waiting to complete a parking test. I know that we're reevaluating short-term rentals, and we have our attorney doing reviews for that. But I would love to hear their voice, what they want to do, and kind of move forward. And you know what? At the end of the day, they may bring up Cole Park. I know that we have Chris Plumley on board. We have several other people that are vacation rental owners. And we have a good mix of our neighbors as well. And one thing we want to do is we want to bring community and conversation. And I'm looking forward to the first meeting. I'd love that. I'm loving to, maybe it's not even a meeting. Maybe it's a pizza and dinner and social.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, we could certainly kind of structure the meeting really in any way, because it's an advisory board meeting, right?
Yeah.
So I will tell you, just kind of thinking right now too, I do think that one item on the agenda will most likely be just a presentation of our strategic plan, like we did for the community when we approved it, because I think that really serves as a great starting place for discussion to come out of that. So that, I'm just thinking right now that will be an item on the agenda, just to, and I know many of our neighbors that come to our commission meetings will be familiar with that, but it will be good to just go over the strategic plan and kind of talk about what came of that. And then, and just the items that you all listed, I've marked them down, and that, can certainly talk a little bit about each of those at the meeting, but absolutely agree that this is the neighbor advisory board, and it's for them to advise the commission and for them to come up with the ideas.
We should invite the sheriff's department too. They like to well, they want to kill each other either too.
We don't want to invite the sheriff's department. They don't live in Indian Rocks Beach. Anyway, but with that, attract neighbors. How do we get neighbors? How are we more neighborly? I agree with everything that the commission came up with, but I would love to hear their voice and their ideas. And I firmly, I know that every board that we have filled, we have given them our strategic plan. That is a part of this city now, and we're sharing that. And I think, that would be a major talking point for them to jump off and kind of go forward with that. So what's the next steps?
No, we invited the neighbor advisory board members here. You can certainly hear from them, or just go ahead and set the meeting in September. Looking at mid-September, I usually try not to have an advisory board meeting conflict with the week of the commission meeting. So we meet on the second Tuesday of the month. So I'm looking at the neighbor advisory board meeting on like the third Tuesday of the month as a starting point. And I think, I love the idea of maybe even having the meeting, maybe not always here. I think for the first meeting, maybe just have it here just to get everybody kind of acclimated with one another, familiar with one another, familiar with staff, and then maybe talk about what that looks like. But I'm open to anything.
And
the Board of Adjustment meets the third Tuesday, but we can meet another day that third week, so it's fine.
okay. And we'll look forward to you and Lauren figuring that out.
Yes, we will send, what we will do is we will invite, like putting it on your calendars too, just so you're aware that the meeting is happening. Obviously, don't expect any of you to attend, but we'll get that on the neighbor advisory board's calendar.
And of course, some city employees.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The whole team effort.
Does anybody on the commission have anything else to add? Commissioner King?
No, thank you.
Okay, I can't see your face, so I'm gonna keep calling you out, okay?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Lynn.
So we're gonna move to the approval of resolution 2026-15. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, Florida Hurricane Task Force Action Plan.
Mayor, if I may, this is first reading of resolution number 2026-15, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, recognizing the work of the Hurricane Task Force, supporting its Hurricane Task Force Action Plan, and providing for an effective date.
And Mayor and Commissioner, I do have a presentation. I can go through it. I know it's part of your packet. But I do want to go through the presentation, and then I would certainly want to turn it over to Commissioner King, who did yeoman's work on working with the board and organizing a lot of the work for the board, so certainly appreciate it. But I just wanted to go through this and just highlight a lot of the great work that the board did, and I know we have some members of the board here in attendance too. So I have a presentation. A Hurricane Task Force was a community-led response to hard-earned blessings. It was established by the City Commission on April 14, 2026, and it was created to evaluate lessons learned from Hurricane Helene and Milton, assess the city's current level of preparedness, identify vulnerabilities, and strengthen emergency planning and improve coordination with local, county, and state partners. It was 3 months of focused collaboration. We had 7 members from our community, 7 neighbors, 1 city commissioner, and a broad network of partners that participated. For me, one of the highlights of the Hurricane Task Force were, quote unquote, the guest speakers that we have come and present, but really just community partners that we were able to put faces to names and have them meet with the board. And I think all of them recognize just the great work that this board was doing, the fact that we created a board, the fact that we were having these conversations, impressed them. We had Chief Grimes, obviously from Pinellas Suncoast Fire Rescue, come in and speak about just his experience with hurricanes in general, but also the response of the department during Helene in particular. We had Duke Energy come and present. But it was also really awesome just to have the Pinellas County Emergency Management Team come and present. Kathy Perkins. She's hard to get because she's so busy this time of year, but she came and not only did she come to the meeting, but she stayed the whole meeting and interacted with the board. And I think that meant a lot. That meant a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to the board, just to having somebody like that come to our meeting and invest their time with our board. But the work produced 5 priorities in a 1-year action plan. Those 5 priorities were communication, how to improve our communication, how to improve our continuity of operations, how do we improve education for our community, how do we get better at pre-storm preparation, and then certainly how we go about our recovery effort. I have a picture here on that slide. Sorry for running, I know it's hard to navigate, but it was just the Hurricane Expo. Actually, really the pictures that are scattered throughout the plan of the Hurricane Expo, because we're incredibly proud of that effort that was brought about by the Hurricane Task Force. And certainly as your city manager, proud of our staff for putting that together so quickly. I know she's not here right now. She's running around doing a number of things, but the work that Michelle did on Hurricane Task Force was incredible to put it together that fast. I have to tell you honestly, when we started talking about the Hurricane Task Force, I have no shame in saying this, I thought it would be something we would do next year, but the fact that we were able to do it this year just speaks to the work of your staff and the work of the task force in helping getting this off the ground and running. So thank you, everyone. But we talked about communication and how we must reach every neighbor and expand the network, enhance our emergency text alerts, and maintain a recorded hotline. That is something we were actually able to already check off. And I know we talked about it. We have some magnets at the front, but that's a huge item that we're able now to say that we've accomplished, because we never had that, right? And now we have a system of getting information quickly out to our neighbors in the event of a storm and then post-storm. Develop a neighborhood captain system. We talked about neighbors serving throughout our community as kind of the go-to and leading an effort in preparation and then getting back on the island and helping with the recovery. We suggested that members of the Hurricane Task Force serve as those neighborhood captains. We had a great representation of our task force throughout the whole city in a number of different neighborhoods. So I think that they will be able to cover kind of that role of being a subject matter expert within their neighborhood and being the go-to for our neighbors. And then create rental owner and property manager networks. We understand we have a lot of rental companies here that are operating, and it's imperative that we get information to them so they can get information to those that are staying at their rentals prior to a storm. So working with our management companies here in the community on making sure that that information that we need to get out to those that are visiting are properly provided. City operations must continue through disruption. We talked about hardening our systems, moving towards cloud-based operations and access, pursue resiliency-focused grants. Those are some long-term projects that we'll be working on, but establishing backups. And then, one thing that we talked about doing, this is something that would be done really at the staff level, but tabletop exercises. So tabletop exercises are very effective in getting the staff together, simulating a hurricane, simulating what the outreach would be prior to a hurricane, simulate where everyone would be during a hurricane and the roles during a hurricane, and then simulate what recovery looks like. We have a small staff, right? And part of having our community partners come to the Hurricane Task Force or to show that, this goes beyond City Hall in terms of everything that we do here, right? So we need to just be, mindful of that and responsive to all of our neighbors in that effort. Preparedness education starts before the forecast. We talked about just that effort. And then the first Hurricane Expo turned planning into action. So a major action item already achieved. Neighbors met directly with public agency, nonprofits, restoration specialists, and preparedness partners during our Hurricane Expo. Preparation begins block by block. Neighborhood captains establish volunteer roles that help rally neighbors and extend the city's ability to distribute timely information. And then storm drain readiness, increase routine inspection and cleaning, create a predictable schedule, and address drainage issues before storm conditions arrive. Recovery starts with clear rebuilding guidance. Recovery education should explain FEMA's 50% rule. We talked about that, and structure value determinations. How to verify a contractor's license status. So one thing that I really want to appreciate or recognize the mayor in this and providing information on, so Pinellas County actually provides yard signs with information on how to verify contractors and contractors that are certified and all that. And that's something that we heard from the Hurricane Task Force was that during or after the storm recovery, there were some contractors on here that shouldn't have been on here. People using contractors that they shouldn't have used. And we have, Pinellas County provides a lot of information on that. But that was something that we want to do a better effort of making sure that our neighbors know, hey, if you're going to use a contractor after a storm, this is who you need to, first check this website and check through Pinellas County to verify that these are contractors that you should be conducting business with. And if they're not on that list, then you need to second guess using them or call the county or report some concerns. And they were actually at our Hurricane Expo, and they'll be at the Expo next year too, so we'll be able to provide that information. So I think the mayor could just provide us pictures of that. We've already gotten those yard signs. We're producing them ourselves, so we'll be able to put those out there and provide those in the event. And then just permitting, helping people through the permitting process afterwards. I know we did that after Helene, but we've learned some lessons from that, and making sure that, we're just on top of our game and on top of all the information that we need to be providing our neighbors. Also utilizing some of our community too, community that are experts in this, AIA, and SAP certified professionals from the region and beyond. We've already had some, as you know, Scott Holmes, who served on our Hurricane Task Force, has offered to provide some services. So just another great connection through the Hurricane Task Force that'll help our neighbors in the event of the storm and recovery. And then recovery hubs, restore services in daily life. We talked about that and just trying to get, in the event of a storm and recovery, how can people kind of start putting their life together and providing food and shelter and things like that. We did talk about getting food trucks here. We don't allow food trucks in Indian Rocks Beach, but in the event of a storm and people needing food and local businesses, restaurants, is there a way of getting them authority to come in with a food truck and provide food for our community? And that's something that we would need to work with on our ordinances and providing for emergency issues. And then county coordination, expand recovery services, and then we talked about that, just continually working with the county. And then communication channels already expanding. Like I said, we did the magnet. We provided that. And next year's about execution and accountability. We've already set up our Hurricane Expo for June 12th, 2027, so that'll be our second annual, and we look forward to making it bigger and better than ever. Look at expanding it perhaps to the Beach Arts Center or even to the library. And then I just want to, the last slide is just thank the Hurricane Task Force for all their hard work. Thank Commissioner King. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the commission. And Commissioner King, I do need to take care of the sheriff's executive.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that time. Commissioner King, do you have anything to add? And first of all, thank you for taking the lead on this. You've done a fabulous job.
So I'm going to turn that around and say I have the best team here, not, our city staff, and appreciate and very grateful for the alacrity with which they've taken the action items to heart and already have the ball rolling in so many different ways. We also learned a lot. But what a great team. We've got pictures here. These are our neighbors. Everybody experienced the hurricane in slightly different ways.
Hello? Did we lose her?
We did lose her.
Commissioner, are you there?
No, she dropped from the Zoom call.
Again, she's done a fabulous job. We've identified through and after the fact, we had approximately 118 homes that had not permitted after the fact, so the city has actually sent out letters to them as well to try and find out what we can do. One thing we did ask the Hurricane Advisory Board is to think about recovery, because recovery is still going on today. It's not about recovery after the last hurricane. We're still dealing with it. But with that, I guess with Commissioner King kind of offline and Ryan at this particular point in time, we have a City of Indian Rocks Beach resolution. I'll let you handle that, Matt, if you're comfortable with that.
We've already got the title, if you want to take public comment, if there's any before, and then we'll put it to a...
Does anybody have any public, I'm opening the floor for public comment. If anybody has anything to say about the Hurricane Task Force, or anything we can do better with hurricanes.
And I ask that you entertain any motions.
I will make a motion that we approve resolution number 2026-15, a resolution for the City Commission of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, Florida Hurricane Task Force Action Plan.
Second.
Commissioner Watt?
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Vaughn,
Yes. Can we text Commissioner?
I think she's back
I think
on.
she's back.
Yes, yes.
Commissioner King,
Sorry, dropped my audio for a while.
oh, good.
Thank
Uh,
you for picking up for me.
Commissioner King, we've made a resolution. We've, first motion, second motion, and we're voting on it.
Right. No, I heard the vote and I vote yes also. Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay?
Motion passes.
Motion. And again, thank you, Commissioner King, for all your hard work on that. I really do appreciate it. And I know the citizens do as well.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm turning that right back around to the members, our neighbors that participated and gave up their free time. They were just amazing.
Awesome. And I hear they're neighborhood captains now.
Working. I don't know if they like that so much, but yes.
Okay. And this, we will move on to item number 7.3, the first reading of ordinance 2026-04. Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. The first reading of ordinance number 2026-04, ordinance of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 74, Waterways, Article 3, Beaches, Division 1 generally, by amending Section 74-61, prohibited activities of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, to add smoking and vaping as a prohibited beach activity, creating new Section 74-67, 74-68, 74-69, and 74-70, providing for purpose and definitions and prohibition of smoking and vaping on public beaches, providing for exceptions, providing for posting of no smoking signs, providing for enforcement and penalties, providing for conflicts, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Good job.
Thank you.
Do I have do we do public announcement?
Yeah, we can take discussion, public comment, and then discussion amongst the commission.
I would like to open the floor for the first reading of this ordinance 2026-04. Does anybody wish to speak?
Patty Katz, 124 13th Avenue, Indian Rocks Beach. I think it's a great idea. Just wondering how we're going to enforce it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So I can also turn it over to Robin too from his experience with this. But the way that I see it is, it's kind of like dogs on the beach, right? So we get reports on dogs on the beach. We then have to go and we have to lay out something, we have to cite it, right? And so unfortunately, it's a frustrating call because it's like there are dogs on the beach, we go out there, we can't find the person with the dog on the beach, so we can't write a ticket. But we put signs out, right? No dogs on the beach. And so similar to this is we're going to put signs out at the beach access. And I think the intent really is you can enforce it, you can write a ticket, and we are going to expect that. But a lot of this is going to be about this is just not welcome here. And you make that clear, and over time, that becomes the norm. But certainly, it's always a challenge when you enforce things like this, and because when you don't have blanket coverage like we do on the beach, right? So it is going to be education, it's going to be signage, it's going to be if you see something and it's offensive to you, then call, and we can write a ticket, unlike prior to this we couldn't. But it is just going to be that thing that you just hope over time becomes the norm. And I can turn it, Robin, just can provide his.
And certainly, this will be communicated to all of the deputies that are assigned here to Indian Rocks, and just remind them here's another enforceable action, and making sure that people, if they do see them, they can ticket, advise them that's not allowed, and they can do that. In other locations that I've been in here in Pinellas County, interesting, it's very rare to actually issue a citation for catching someone, but I have experience where they did issue a citation for littering. So the disposing of the cigarette onto the sand. But clearly the purpose here is to ensure that people see the signage and just not engage in that activity. As Ryan stated, the dogs on the beach, it's kind of like glass on the beach is not allowed. Wouldn't really issue, or they can also an enforceable activity issue a ticket, a citation, but just another item that will help keep our beach a little cleaner.
And the fines up to $500.
Yes, it gives two ways to enforce it, but the preferred way, the main way, is a one-time citation for $500. There's also the route to treat it as a typical, a code enforcement issue where you ask for daily fines if it continues, if it's somebody that is a perpetual violator. So I don't, we kind of put everything in there to give our team the tools needed, but yeah, the first one-time violation, $500 fine.
That's an expensive cigarette.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Beth McMullen, 41 Howard Jones South. I think it's great, but I don't know how long ago it was, probably y'all might remember, 6 years ago, maybe more, probably more, they had a sign that the city put a sign up over there on Walsingham and Gulf Boulevard, right under Welcome to Indian Rocks Beach. And I think it said it was cute. It was something like, please don't throw your butts in the sand because our crabs don't smoke, or something like that. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. People went nuts over that. They were so offended by it. And I think it was a great way to get the message out. But people were like, that is so unfriendly. That is not a welcoming sign, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to warn you before you do anything like that. I thought it was funny and got the message across, but, certain people didn't.
And I really, I want to, and I think one of the intents of Vice Mayor is, creating the beach that we want to create, right? Creating the environment that we want to create. And I think this goes a long way.
Beth Flynn, 914 Harbor House Drive. I agree with Patty and Beth. I think it's a great idea. When I first moved here, I thought we had that rule. There were signs at the beach that said you couldn't smoke at the beach. So I was kind of surprised when people were doing it and that you couldn't say that. I think it's a great marketing opportunity that when we do this, that we do it as a positive thing and reiterate the no dogs on the beach at the same time talk about something great thing. So make it positive and not negative.
Like no smoking dogs on the beach.
We have had people grill hot dogs in our beach access.
Okay, well then that probably won't work. Okay. Anybody else? We are ready for, may I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2026-04 on its first reading.
Second.
Commissioner Watt?
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Commissioner King seems to be connected with many issues.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Vaughn?
Yes. Can we text her?
Just for the record purposes, Mr. King is appearing remotely and is having connectivity issues, so we will take her vote as not present for this vote.
Okay, not present, okay.
Motion carries.
We will move to section number 7.5, approval of the June 30th, 2026. Oh, I'll go. I tried to go back to you, Robin, to make up for the last time, so I apologize. We're going to move to 7.4, appoint an applicant as an alternative member number 2 for the Board of Adjustments and Appeals for a 3-year term to expire on June 30th, 2029. And I'm going to hand it over to our city clerk, Morgan.
Well, we're back at it again. I think you know drill. So and you were all given applicants. We did have a new applicant, so I'm going to leave it back to you now.
And I am taking calls for a nomination of an
I'd
applicant.
like to appoint Tom McMullen as the alternative applicant.
Do I have a second?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Let's take a call here. Commissioner Watt?
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Yay. Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
All right, motion to approve Tom McMullen.
Tom, do you have anything to say?
Great.
Don't resign on us.
Can we backtrack and get Hillary's vote now that she's back, or is it too late?
Yeah, I think the vote's closed, so we'll count her vote as not present for the last ordinance,
Okay.
but
Thank you for trying, Jan, but yes, I would have voted positively, so.
Next
it'll
month.
be before us next month for second reading.
Okay, let's move to one more time, the June 30th approval of year-to-date financial report. Robin, would you like to take?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Commission, this item is to look at our financial update for our three major funds, the general fund, our capital projects, and our solid waste funds through June 30th of 2026, or approximately 3/4 through our fiscal year. In the general fund, our revenues continue to exceed our expenditures. We have collected all of our budgeted property taxes for the year. The reason we are ahead of the budgeted revenue, we did receive our final insurance payment for the year, so that's why a couple of the categories are a little bit higher. The miscellaneous revenue includes those insurance payments totaling over $600,000 for the current year. It also includes our first distribution from the paid parking, which was approximately $121,641. That was just for the first 2 weeks in the month of May. So that was received in June. So that's why that revenue is much higher. As I've shared with you before, our other revenue categories for licenses and permits and the vacation rental and inspections and fines are higher than the budget due to just increased activity from the vacation rentals, which leads to the actual vacation rental revenue being higher, as well as our business tax receipts for all those rental properties. Also, the fines due to the magistrate work and bringing folks that were previously non-compliant to compliance, and so therefore some of those the fines have added up over through our current year. On the expense side, we're pretty much at budget. No real significant increases in expenses or anything really that's expected in the general fund. So we currently do collected quite a bit more than the expenses through June of 2026. In the capital fund, similarly, we received, obviously we continue to receive our penny for Pinellas, or the local option sales tax. That's just on budget as it should be. We did apply to receive a grant for the aqua fence. We did not receive it prior to June 30th, but since we're talking about the current year, we did receive it just a few weeks ago. So we have that, you'll see that in the next financial update. And our expenditures are kind of where a little bit above, but certainly still within budget. I will be bringing essentially a year-end adjustment due to the aqua fence expenses. But again, we did receive that grant just a couple of weeks ago, at the end, in July, anyway, within the last couple of weeks. And then in the solid waste fund, again, really no significant changes or anything really out of the ordinary. Our revenues continue to come in fairly within budget, and the expenditures are slightly below regarding solid waste operations. So because no real significant activity other than the daily operations so far through the first 9 months of this year. And one of the, related back to the general fund, our leisure service expenditures that are kind of second to the last line, I meant to kind of provide a little bit more detail. It's just some of the special events that staff work on and spend a little bit of time, and then some of the expenses related with some of the special events that we have, like the Oktoberfest, the Christmas holiday activities. And central services is the catch-all in the general fund citywide for our communications expenses, such as our Verizon cell phone bill, our regular phone, desktop phones, our information technology expenses, so all of the software that we use, most of the software that we use, and the equipment that we use, computers, a couple of laptops, and our utility bills that are paid, Duke Energy, Pinellas County Water and Sewer that we have to pay. That's why I think that came up as a question in one of the previous meetings. So that's what is budgeted and spent in central services. We have, if you have any questions.
Open it up to the commission.
I love the fact that you do updates frequently for us.
Thank you for that. You know, coming back from the Florida League of Cities, how often do we go back and look at our contracts and actually try to renegotiate them or just evaluate them? And I might be, it's an unfair question because all of you guys are new.
Yeah, it's usually when they come up for expiration, right?
Okay.
And, you know, or if there's options to renew, I'll kind of take a look at that. Something you have to rebid out, right?
Kind of like what we're doing with recycling.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as I think some of the changes that have happened this year, some of the newer software also allows us to kind of look at just a quick example related to parking, so which also incorporates the vacation rental registration and how we accept payments online and also in person, and specifically credit card payments. So in going to different software for parking, part of that process was to find a better rate for credit card merchant processing fees, and our fees were quite high for parking, of course, because the average transaction was about $4. And, you know, lower transactions, your percentage can be a little bit higher when paying with a credit card. But now that the rate is higher, the average transaction is higher. But the vendor that we're using, Park Mobile, is charging us about a 5% rate whereas the previous one was charging us between 8 and 12%. And now that we're going into essentially hundreds of thousands and likely into the 7-digit range, specifically for parking, you're looking at a little, more revenue because your fees are less. So certain things, and I think Ryan, is correct that as we were looking when it comes time, but we're also when you do have kind of new staff, you kind of are looking at different things as well. And so trying to see where we can kind of look at certain things and make sure that we are getting the best possible rate. And looking at the services, even our financial software, we added a user, but then through the changing in staff, now we don't need the additional user, but we were billed for that, and so we really don't need that service. Not a gigantic amount of money, but so we are kind of taking on. We have a new accountant. I've been here for a few months, and so we're kind of going through that process as we come across.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Right.
Would you have a question?
No, I was gonna make a motion that we approve it.
All right.
I make a motion that we approve our year-to-date financial report.
Second.
Commissioner Watt?
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And for those of you hardcore citizens that are still sitting in your chairs, we reward you with a minute of open mic. So the floor is open.
I'll be real quick, Patrick Melvin, 481 Park Drive South. Just when we're talking about the neighborhood task force and bringing the community together and all that, I wanted to make a shout out with of Lee and Mary Wilkerson, Sandy Gulfside Resorts, and they had one of their employees put together this really cute song, and it's like a calypso beat to it, and it talks about how we're a small community and how the residents are who makes up the community, and it's a very inviting song, and it fits in with everything we're doing as far as our solution.
Can you share it with?
I asked Mary, I said, it's only on Facebook right now, and I said, I want to share it with other people who are on Facebook, like you guys, and she said, well, maybe we could put it on Spotify or YouTube, so I'll follow up with her.
We thought you would sing it for us.
Well, you get an extra minute.
Anybody else? Okay. Do you have anything to, Vice Mayor?
I have nothing for the future agenda items this time.
Oh, I was looking for a motion
We don't have to make a motion.
to
I make a motion.
adjourn.
No, I have
Future agenda items, no.
Then I'll make a motion.
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so
Please.
I would like to add possible new business. So the city has an ordinance regarding dock lighting, and the city has an ordinance regarding the beach turtle lighting, but the city does not have an ordinance regarding general outdoor lighting in the residential area. And so there's been a situation where there's really bright lights in the backyard of a house, and it's casting across the other houses, across the bay. And so I think it would be appropriate to establish a general lighting ordinance that would have similar language as the dock lighting ordinance has. And so I'd like to add that to a possible future agenda item.
Okay. Commissioner Bigelow, do you have anything?
No, I think the outdoor lighting is a strong issue in several of our streets. Nothing new.
Commissioner King?
But nothing new to add, but yes, totally support the recommendation from Commissioner Watt.
And I would as well. I'd love to understand what our code enforcement's doing with the docks as well. Because it's kind of difficult, but a lot of them stay on all night, and they're definitely not using turtle lighting in the bay, I can assure you. So can we put that on a future agenda item?
Yes, Mayor and Commission, I'd be happy to. And I'll get with staff, get with the attorney on kind of what that looks like in that discussion. I do want to recognize that, Mayor, that you had requested having a look at the speed limits
Yes.
In our residential neighborhoods. So at the next meeting, what I'd like to do as a work session item is kind of resurrect the item from, I believe it was 2023. And you can correct me on that because I think you were on the commission when it was last discussed. But
I had just thinking.
so want to talk about that, right? So right now it's 25 miles per hour in our residential neighborhoods. The conversation has been about lowering that to 20. Again, that comes down to enforcement. So if you do that, we have the easy job of going out and putting out the signs, but then it's up to working with the sheriff's office to enforce that and what that would look like. But I think it's worth the conversation too, just to highlight some of the things that were talked about back in 2023 to see if those things still hold true. And I'll have the Public Works Director, Mr. Sharman, speak on that as well. What state law is too, when it's not posted, is my understanding is it is 25 miles per hour in a residential neighborhood when it's not posted. So we would need to put the postage out there for 20 miles per hour. But also too, for the community to speak on it as well, if that's something they want.
Absolutely, and the commission.
And then will you include in the costs that might be associated with that?
The signage, yeah, exactly.
And I'll be looking for teenagers riding golf carts with their dogs smoking a cigarette.
that would be the ultimate issue, right?
That's what I'll be looking for.
Yeah.
Pulling the wagon behind.
So I can be citizen arrest.
Yeah.
That'd be the ultimate agitator, right?
At this time, I'll make a motion for adjournment. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner King.
Thank you, Commissioner King.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.